Hey guys, this is Neil with Catalyst Machine Works. I've got something extremely exciting to share with you today. So exciting, as a matter of fact, that I've put on my special black gloves. These are my Darth Vader gloves. Okay, let's get started. So what am I going to put on the table today? Here it is. Okay, so what we've done, we've got a brand new version of the Mofo racer. So this is the version 2. If you currently own or have owned the version 1 Mofo, you know what I'm talking about. If this is new to you, well, then you need to stay tuned, and I'm going to explain it to you, because in my humble opinion, and in the opinion of all my team pilots, this is the perfect blend between price, durability, weight, and utility. Okay, it does not get better than this. We have a never-ending desire to figure out how to improve, okay? And in the world of racing, I think that we've really nailed it with this one, okay? It gets even better, okay? So this is a standard type of race frame that I've got on the screen here, 5mm arms, thick 2mm top plate. These bottom plates, this is 1.5. This is a very thick 4mm, we'll call it a mid plate. So this is a really tough race frame, and we've actually improved the durability moving into this new version compared to the version 1. And I'll go over all those details, but I just wanted to give you a rundown of basically what this is. Now here is the little trick up our sleeves. There is also an ultralight version available. Okay, now this one is really special. So this guy is for you racers or freestyle pilots looking for a sub 250 true race frame, okay? Something that is durable, something that has utility, is easy to use out on the racetrack, or just going and bashing and having a good time, okay? This thing is super special, and I'm going to go into detail about both of these options and why this is most definitely going to be your new race frame. One of the things that makes the Mofo so special as a race frame is the highly efficient use of fasteners and carbon. There's a million different ways you can design a frame, okay? And this tactic with this design, which I want to give credit to the guy who actually came up with this specific design. It was not me. It was my team pilot, Ryan Evans, unbelievably talented engineer. Okay, and so he designed the first version of this thing. He came up with this scenario and how this all mounts in here. And I wanted to give him credit for that because he did a fantastic job. Now, I, of course, have taken and added my own flair and made changes with the version 2, but there we go. So you guys can reach out to him via email and give him a pat on the back or a golf clap, whatever the hell you want to do. Okay, so now, I've had too much coffee. I'm sorry, I'm being ridiculous. So let's get into it. So you see how everything mounts in here. Okay, so this bottom plate is a 4mm piece of carbon that has been machined. It's got machined features in here. And the arms, this is the version 1 that we're looking at, that I'm playing with right now. The arms come in here like this. Then there is a bottom plate that goes through here. Right? Now on this side, there is a captive nut. So what you do is you run a screw through here. It goes through the center, and it goes through this little hole and then into the captive nut. Then you've got screws that run, one right here, one right here. Runs through here and then up through the other side. And then you've got them running into standoffs. You see that? See how it runs into standoffs? So the same screw that's being used in this point to hold the arm in is also being used for the standoff. That's a very efficient use of fasteners. Additionally, there are only 3 fasteners holding in both arms. 1, 2, 3. Again, a very efficient use of fasteners. Now, here's something that everybody who buys a drone does when they first get the drone. What do? You put it together and you go, oh, is it moving? Did the arms move? Ooh, 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 ooh. And now, for whatever reason, everybody thinks that that is a good determining factor of whether an arm is good or not. It's not, but I'll just imagine that it is. And this frame has no movement at all. There's none. Once these things are locked in, you cannot move them. If after assembling your frame, you put it all together and you tighten it up properly, and you're able to move these arms, I'll refund your money in full and I'll send you an apology email. Okay? These things are locked in. Check that out. So awesome. So it's actually pretty difficult to get the machining correct on carbon fiber such that the tolerancing on this part matches up with the tolerancing on here, and that your variance is low enough on both parts that it's not either too loose or too tight. Right? And we've achieved that, and every single frame gets the same treatment. Okay, so yours will always be that good. It will always be locked in. Now, here is we'll call it a design mistake that we made with the first version of this that I have resolved with the second version. That has to do with the stress concentration that is caused in this area. Okay, so here's the frame. When you hit the ground, typically you're going to get a force in this direction. Could be in this direction, depends on how it's flipping and how it's impacting the ground. But let's say you get a force in this direction. Your point of highest stress is here where the arm joins to the body. Well, you can see in the first version that where we have a hole, there's no meat, there's no extra meat on either side of the hole to account for the hole. So when you pop a hole in here, you now only have this material here and this material here. So you don't have the entire width of this arm taking all of that load. So the original Mofo, if you were going to break an arm, it was going to break right here. And to be quite honest with you, it broke a little bit too easily. So what we have done is we have corrected that by adding this material here that you can see around the arm. So we still have the same cross-sectional area here that we do here. All right. Another thing that we did to the arm is we got rid of the chicken feet. What do I mean by chicken feet? The arm pad right here. Okay. You know, there are reasons for this, that we did the chicken feet. The original reason was to help to hold this thing on the starting box. Okay, so here's a starting box, right, for racers. And those little chicken feet, help to dig into the box and sort of hold it in place so it doesn't fall off the box. A lot of people didn't like that. They didn't like the chicken feet for whatever reason. Okay, so we have moved away from the chicken over to a more standard type of, motor pad. This is actually the same type of motor pad that we use in the America frames and the Slam Nasty. Okay, so you can put, it actually has this little area here where you can put the little bumper guards will fit this. We've stayed with 3 screws to hold the motor on. There's no need to have the 4th screw. Motor holds on fine with just 3 screws. You can even use aluminum screws. It's not going anywhere. So the extra screw is waste. So we stayed away from putting that 4th hole there. Okay, and that sums up the arms. Now, again, we have changed the bolt patterns, as you can see, to where you've got whoop board you can put in here, 25.5 by 25.5, or you can do 20 by 20 micro, or you can do full size stack 30.5 by 30.5. Right? Now, the weight difference. Okay, so the original frame, which I don't have one assembled here, but when you put it together in this exact configuration that we've got right here in my hands, it comes to 59 and some change. This frame also comes to 59 and some change, and I'll prove it to you. This is the standard configuration for bigger motors, bigger components, bigger race components. And there we go, 59 and some change. So with all of these additions and changes and improvements, the weights stay the same, which is very, very impressive. That's a fantastic weight. This ultralight, I'm going to go ahead and show you the bare frame weight. So here it is right here. This frame weight comes to just below 50 grams. All right, so that is what we've got going on with this HD build. So this is the ultralight version of the frame. We've got the Whoop board mounted in here, okay? And there's very special requirements in how this board needs to mount in here. And in the instruction manual, I will go over all that stuff and supply the correct components to make sure that it happens and that it's done correctly, because it's really actually pretty specific, so that you miss the components on the board, everything is mounted in correctly, you're not overly, putting too much pressure on anything. But anyways, we'll go through all that in the manual. But you can see what we've got here is this Whoop board. So because it's an all-in-one, its location is super low on the frame, so it affords you a whole lot of space in here to put things like a Vista. Okay, so we've got mounting holes on the top plate for the Vista, and then you can also fit this camera in here. If I was to try and do this with a typical stack, the stack is going to be sitting somewhere about up here, which means that these standoffs are going to be super tall. That's what makes these Whoop boards so awesome, is that you can accomplish a really compact, center section fuselage like this. And they're just now starting to become reliable, where they can handle, 6S and higher end motors. Now, if you want to pair a bigger racing motor, let's say like a 2207, a 220, or 2306 with a Whoop board like this, I don't really know if that is totally going to be reliable for you at this point. These are going to keep getting better, but at this point it's still a little sketchy. There's a gentleman here in Houston area. His name is Ivan, and he is unbelievably fast, one of the fastest racers in the state actually. And he's taken this specific board, and I think he was racing with like a 2207 on a typical race frame, and he said he got about 100 packs out of it, which is pretty damn good. Now, here's what is to go with this type of motor. Okay, so if you look at this, if my camera will ever actually focus on it, here we go. If you look at this, what this is an ultralight motor, but it's got a standard 5mm shaft. Now that shaft is super important. The reason it's so important is because as racers, if you're a racer, you know this. If you try and take a T-mount, which a T-mount is basically the shaft is chopped off in an effort to save as much weight as possible on the motor, and then you've got two little M2 screws that run through the prop and hold it to the bell. For racing, that is terrible, because the little M2 screws and a very fragile prop, they're just a pain in the ass. Okay, you don't want to be screwing with that. What you want is a typical 5mm shaft like we all use in racing. So that's what's special about this particular motor. And actually this was a suggestion from Johnny 5 FPV, John. He's here in Houston as well. And I reached out to him. I said, hey man, I'm designing this, this super lightweight, ultralight racer, but I can't really find a motor that makes any sense. And he suggested this one. I think this type motor is going to become more and more popular, where we've got the ultralight type of configuration with a proper shaft for racing. So this type of motor is what I suggest for this ultralight. Now this particular one, this leads me to another part that's cool about this ultralight. This particular motor has M3 screws. You can see the screws here, and they're on a 16 millimeter bolt circle. Okay, very common for a standard type of racing motor. Now, if you put an ultralight motor on here, a lot of them, most of them, come with M2 screws. So what do? Well, you design into the motor pad the ability to not only mount M3 screws on a 16 millimeter circle, but also M2 screws on a 12 millimeter circle. So you can mount both type motors on this ultralight. Another aspect of the Mofo design that makes this thing so freaking awesome for racers is how easy it is to change the arms out. For this portion of the video, you're going to get the rare treat to peer upon my disgusting hands without gloves on. Look at that. This is what happens when you get old, my friends. You're not going to stay young forever. Okay, so here's how you do it. Let's say you're racing and you're hauling butt, and God forbid you pop an arm right here. It's broken and you're crying. Just loosen this screw right here, barely. Take this screw out. Oops. Arm comes right out. Replace it with a new arm. Back in, put your screw back. Okay, tighten this guy back up. Locked and loaded, friends. Easy peasy. So let's see what kind of all-up weight we can get with this ultralight with an HD system. All right. Now, keep in mind the motor that I selected, which I mentioned previously, has a standard shaft. This shaft is heavier, so this motor, compared to more typical ultralight motors, like let's say the 2004 from Brother Hobby that everybody uses, this is about 5 grams heavier. So you can actually save yourself 20 full grams if you go with a different motor. This is only the motor I'm suggesting. You don't have to use it. Use whatever the hell you want. I don't care. Okay, so you can save a lot of weight. Keep that in mind when you see this mass. This is a more race-friendly motor. Okay, let's get this started up here. All right, let's put a strap on. Okay, this is a 4S 650 mAh R-line pack. Look at that. All right, we are only about 22 grams above 250. Now, if you decided that you really wanted to get this thing below 250, what you can do is you can change the motors out to lighter motors, or you can keep these motors and you can race with analog, right? Take out this heavy Vista. This Vista is incredibly heavy. Get yourself a nano camera, an analog video, antenna, and bam, you are below 250 grams with a very tough, highly resilient, true race frame. I think that's pretty awesome. What do you say? All right, so I guess that pretty much sums it up. One thing I do want to part with is that sort of the trend I see with this equipment. Okay, we have a trend that is heading towards smaller, lighter components and more performance with lighter weight. And I see an absolute explosion with interest in these ultralight frames. I think one day the manufacturers of things like motors and boards and camera systems are going to get to the point to where we can have the same type of performance and durability and reliability that we're used to out of a more standard race frame with full-size components, big motors, and all that jazz, but we're going to be able to do it with a very ultralight setup. So smaller motors, very, very lightweight yet powerful. Smaller electronics, reliable yet small and compact. That is going to continue to progress. And so this movement towards, sub 250 race frames is going to continue to improve, and we're going to continue to progress in that direction. We're going to have more offerings like this really cool motor here. Okay, so that sums it up. If you guys have any questions, feel free to email me at info@catalystmachineworks.com or support@catalystmachineworks.com. I'm going to get off this camera here, sit on the computer for the next 6 hours, and put together all the product pages for this new release and get this thing up for you guys. Once this thing goes live, please give us about 3 weeks to get all the parts in, and then we will start shipping out as soon as we have those parts, as soon as we can, okay? Thank you for your support.